Hey there, folks! First off, I'm still getting the hang of how the new microphone sounds since this is the first time using a Blue Yeti, so let me know in the comments. Second off, today's episode is dedicated to the masochists in the audience because, boy, I have a treat for you. See, I recently received a review key for Possum House Studios' Trichromatic platformer, Shot in the Dark. This title managed to provide me with a solid bit of suffering, though that does beg the question. Was this an instance of it hurting so good, or would I have preferred to be kept in the dark about this game's existence? I'm your host Arlyeon. Let's find out together. Some things can only be settled with blood. The man in black had done you wrong, and there was nothing, be it on earth or hell, that was going to stop you from getting your retribution. I'm pretty sure that's an accurate summary of the game's plot, but to be honest, it's not like it gives you a whole lot to work with. You are thrown into the thick of things early on, and the crux of what you can expect along your journey is some sparse bits of NPC dialogue, which seem more in service of establishing the game's ambience as a Western-turned supernatural apocalypse, rather than anything else more substantial. I mean, I guess we could consider the fact that we go from being a nameless bounty hunter to a nameless person harboring some form of personal vendetta, a form of story progression, but that's a bit of a reach given we never actually get context for that either. Yeah, so let's just skip to the part where I actually have stuff to talk about. Now, as a game, I would consider Shot in the Dark to be first and foremost a platformer, albeit with a touch of strategic action baked into the mix. And to its credit, I think it does manage to do some interesting things on this front that help to make it a notably challenging romp through the wild yet weird West. And no, I don't just mean because everything murders you instantly, though yes, every enemy and obstacle you encounter will kill you on contact. Rather, what engrossed me was the altogether creative ways that Shot in the Dark went out of its way to kill me once the tutorial had finished, lulling me into a sense of complacency. Which is to say, I did not expect a glowing pair of eyes to just streak across the screen towards me. There was actually something alarming about the way the monster's darkened silhouette was only visible when it passed in front of a lighter background element. Yup, the game puts its limited palette to work, turning what would otherwise be minimalistic marches through a black and white environment into a tense advance which has you staring for any hint of a silhouette hurtling your way. It meant that I wasn't simply needing to hone my reflexes or my ability to make precise jumps. I was also needing to pay a lot more attention to the environment for anything that might be out of place if I was hoping to make any sort of progress. And it's not like it just ends there. Progressing even further begins to add all sorts of new baddies, like monsters that can hide within the slow-moving clouds of fogs, flying monstrosities arc through the air, or even creatures that can only be seen as reflections. Though, perhaps the biggest hindrance to me was the enemy gunslingers you encounter. See, what makes these guys so dangerous is the simple fact that once they become aware of you, a set of crosshairs spawn on the screen and begin homing towards your position, killing you if it reaches you. Oh, and it will continue to pursue you throughout the stage unless you deal with the gunslinger. Now this is probably starting to sound a bit harrowing as far as mechanics go, but I'd like to assure you, it gets worse. Just wait till you reach an area where there's a gunner hidden in a window, just so he can hassle you at his leisure. That's without even mentioning the fact that you'll eventually find yourself pitted against snipers who will target you from several screens away. That's right, there's just stages devoted to seeing you scurry through their mazes of obstacles and dimly lit corridors rife with murderous creeping shadows, forcing you to make precise, split-second decisions if you don't want to earn lead through your lobe. Honestly, it made the moments where I stumbled into a gang of gunslingers all at once feel comparatively relaxing. Sure, I was suddenly needing to weave between crosshairs like I was auditioning for a part in The Matrix, but at least I had a clear idea of everyone I needed to ventilate. Which, yeah, so, you're not completely helpless. Like I said, there's some action elements in the sense that you're armed with a 6-shooter. That said, there's a few stipulations that come with being able to point and click people into oblivion. For one, You can't move while you're aiming, so you're a sitting duck if you're not quick on the draw or good at positioning yourself, which is especially relevant given there's a few enemies that actually get a bit more aggressive when you aim at them. For another, remember how I specified it's a 6-shooter? Yeah, some stages are rife with enemies, and if you're not carefully counting your bullets, it's only a matter of time before you pull the trigger, hear a dry click, and then find yourself smeared into paste. Not that it's easy to keep your gun reloaded at times, given you chamber bullets one at a time, so got all that? Now put it together and you're faced with nightmarish scenarios like needing to run through a maze of enemies while a crosshair dogs your path. Every new gunner you meet forces you to consider whether you want to deal with a new beat on you or to lose the lead you've already gained on a sniper. And every darkened hallway poses the possibility that you might be left squeezing shots at shadows, praying you're not forced to reload with your precious remaining seconds. It is nerve-wracking is what it is. Especially given that some of the stages feel fairly lengthy, and the lack of midpoint checkpoints meant I was forced to relive my former mistakes at length. That said, I was grateful that I didn't have to contemplate my errors for long, as respawning is nigh instantaneous, allowing me to try and die again. Especially whenever I came across the big demon rooms, it took me till near the end of the game to realize that beyond shooting the cultists summoning up demons, I could also shoot the demons being summoned to go and get them to sit back down for a little longer. God, I hate me sometimes, though not as much as I hate the bird people. These bastards were part of the more puzzling elements of the game, and they essentially pop up and provide you with hints about secrets, provided you never pull out your gun. Yeah, that's right. These robed buzzards flee if you so much as have the gall to defend yourself, obliging you to engage in some extreme pacifism in order to find out what they're hiding. Suffice to say, these moments will leave you longing for the parts where you simply have to blast people to find hidden platforms with their entrails. Which, yeah, no, I do have to iterate here. Shot in the Dark does make good use of its limited palette for the sake of its stages and puzzles. Whilst I didn't find the game scary, it did manage to instill a primal distrust for any solid-colored area. An expansive darkness between two patches of white grass just felt implicitly threatening to me, and that's certainly a feat. On the other hand, the sound design wasn't quite as memorable for me. Like, I don't actively dislike it, it was just serviceable, I guess. Besides the end credits, that track actually is a pretty nice note to end the game on, and I found myself wading through the entirety of those credits just because of that tune. Though, to give the sound effects credit, that fucking dry click just straight up Pavloved anxiety into me. So, with all that said, the only thing left to do is sum up all of this for the conclusion, and yeah, I stick by what I said earlier. It's definitely an interesting title. The combination of platforming, its clever use of visuals, and the deliberate nature of the shooting all work together to make a solidly challenging title. That said, it is on the short side, given that it only took me 2.5 hours to get through it. That's not to say there isn't stuff left for me to do. I imagine if I was diligent, I might be able to find a few more odd secrets or Easter eggs. And there's certainly auxiliary achievements to pursue with such challenges as clearing chapters or the entire game without dying. Still, I did try my hand at a few of the stage-specific ones, courtesy of the chapter select system. That and I took the opportunity to curb stomp an earlier level that took my lunch money the first time around. But, that was more out of a sense of pettiness than anything. Essentially, what I'm trying to say here is, Shot in the Dark was a bit of a fumble for me. Don't get me wrong, I had my fun, but it was definitely enjoyment interspersed with segments of profound exasperation, and whilst I did play it through to the end, I ultimately didn't come away with it feeling any motivation to return to it. That said, whilst I found the narrative experience lacking, I can certainly say that if you are a fan of being challenged and enjoy vicious platformers, there's likely something here for you. Just, don't shout at me because you can't customize your controls. Anywho, thanks for tuning in. If you agree, disagree, or just have something to say to me, feel free to comment. And if you enjoy my efforts to create new indie reviews, interviews, and gaming content, hit the subscribe button and the bell so you know when there's a new release. For the Discord savvy folks, click the video description to find a link to my community, the Crit Hit Cauldron, and to my Patreon so you can support me and the other members of Crit Hit. Lastly, if you want to see me get dunked on in indie games live, check out my Twitch at twitch.tv/Arlyeon. That all said, I'll catch you on the next episode of Crit Hit. Take care till then, folks.